Hi, my name's Daniel Hayes. Today's vlog I'm going to do it on how not to buy a smashed supercar. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with buying a car that's been in an accident, but you want to know that it's been in an accident. Because every salesperson I talk to, and I'm not calling them all liars, it's never been in an accident. So you are a fool not to do your own investigations. What I'm going to talk about, I'm not an expert, I'm not a panel beater, I'm not a mechanic, I'm just the layperson that has owned quite a few luxury cars, from supercars to Porsches to Audis to AMGs to Ferraris, to one Ferrari, to, you know, I've owned probably over 100 cars, so I've made lots of mistakes. And so I just want to talk about that today because I had an experience today which again told me you've got to be really careful when you're buying a car. So this is what happened today. I saw a car, I've been watching it for some time, and I watched it drop and drop and drop and drop, okay? And we're talking we're talking, you know, between $400,000 and $500,000 here. So I'm in the market for a car at the moment. I thought I'd go and have a look at this car. So what I did was, as soon as I got there, I saw the car and my heart started to race. And what happens to me is I have a physical change in my body. My heart races, adrenaline pumps. I think, wow, look at that car, it is stunning. I mean, brand new P0s, the mags were just not a chip on them. The Duco was amazing, I could see the clear wrap. I mean, this car was brand new. I mean, it had done 2,000 kilometers. It was like a year old. You know, this is a brand spanking new car. I looked around it, you know, the chrome exhaust pipes, there was like one bit of oil or one bit of exhaust dust on there. I mean, because I'm reasonably experienced in buying cars now, so what I did was I proceeded to check the car out myself. And the first thing I did was I looked under the wheel arches at the plastic. There's the wheel and then there's the plastic, and looked at those bolts. Because if it's had any repairs, those screws will be taken out and then they'll be put back in. And what you're looking for is they were black on this car and they were all chipped. So I could tell that the whole lot of them all had paint missing off them. I then went around and checked all the other three wheel arches and they were all the same. So for me, straight away, that was a red flag. Okay, I then went under the car at the rear of the car, and there's the scoop, and I had a look and I looked at those bolts with my torch. I just showed it up there, and all those bolts had been taken off as well. Now you might think maybe they wrapped the car in clear wrap. Well, they didn't, because there was only clear wrap at the front. So straight away, that was a big warning sign for me. However, I kept looking at the car. I then ran my finger around all the seams looking for any rough edges, because if someone has sprayed the car, generally you can find eventually a rough edge. So eventually I went around to the back of the car and where the engine is. Now in this particular car, the engine sits at the back, so there's nothing can get to it. And on the engine lid, there was a tiny chip on a corner. A stone couldn't have got to it, and under it was primer, and it was all rough. And I knew straight away then that this car had been sprayed at the back. So we've got the chip with primer, and we've got the wheel arches. Drove beautifully, the seats were perfect, the dash, everything was brand new about this car. I then asked him when we returned to pop up the boot so I could have a look at the motor, and he went to use the latch, and it wouldn't open. Bang, boom, there it is. And a number of guys tried to get it open. They put the roof down and put it up, and the latch would not open. The car's been repaired. Do you know what? It might have been a minor accident, but I couldn't even look at the motor or the screws. They had no explanation for that. Anyway, not a car for me. So what I did was I took my time, and I'm not gonna buy that car because I don't know if there's structural damage. I don't know if the whole car's been resprayed. I just don't know what sort of damage that car's had. Another telltale sign of when I asked about that car, it had come from interstate and it had been already to a car dealer, and then it went to another car dealer, and then it ended up at this car dealer. So there was this history of this car moving around. So again, you know, there's 4 big red flags, okay? Screws, this is a new car, newish car. Panels had been removed, I could tell, because the screws were damaged. Some paint, a paint chip with some primer I could see, which could not have been damaged. The boot wouldn't open, and I could notice just some very, very slight paint variations. Very, very hard to pick. So that was my day today. So hence, the reason I say this is because I've been burnt a number of times on cars. And the reason I get burnt is this, because the inexperienced buyer goes in, like me, their heart races, they get carried away, the lighting's not great in some of the car dealerships, and you don't get to see the flaws in the car until you get it home a week later and you wash it and you might hand polish it, and then all of a sudden you notice stuff. And I remember with one of my particular cars, I noticed, and this was a very expensive car, that I got it home, and listen to this, I took this car to a dealer to have it tested and for them to go over the car meticulously. And they missed this. This car had been resprayed because down one of the sides, there was all bubbles. And what happens when you get bubbling in a car over the clear, it means that the primer hasn't dried. So I missed this. So my car had been resprayed and the bubble ran sort of across it. So the car might have been hit by an automatic roller door or something like that. I don't think it had been in a major damage. But still, nevertheless, had I known that when I bought it, I believe I would have negotiated a much better price. I want to tell you about another car. This was a black Porsche I had. Now, this is a stupid thing. But again, it had low Ks. It had about 8,000 or 9,000 Ks on it. It was a Porsche 911. And you would think that there'd be nothing wrong with this car. You would think you pay a couple of $100,000 for it. I bought it sight unseen, 9,000 Ks. The dealer told me it's perfect. What I thought was a reputable place. The car was a week late to get to me. It came from interstate. It got delivered by the dealer in the rain. I didn't get a chance to look over the car. A couple of days later, when the sun cleared, I got underneath the car and the two back tyres were bald. They were on canvas. I then took it to my mechanical technician or my mechanic. He put it up on a hoist. The brakes were right on the border of not being roadworthy as well. That car had been tracked. Luckily, I had a roadworthy certificate with it, and so I took it back to the dealer, and there was a bit of argy-bargy, but I ended up getting my money back, and it was pretty intense, to be honest. So there's 3 cars. The ways that you can tell if a car's been repaired or not, there's some basic checks that you should do, which is a pre-purchase PPR, pre-purchase report. If they've been in a major accident or written off, it's logged. So you definitely need to do that before you buy a car. Secondly, what you can do is you can do a parts check. This is really, really important. You can check to see if parts have been, so let's say you buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, it looks amazing. There might be no check, you might think it's perfect, but you can actually do a parts check to see if there's been any parts ordered against that car. So let's say I buy a Ferrari next week and I do a parts check on it, and I find out that there's been $155,000 worth of parts ordered against that car, but there's no history of any crashes. I know that it's been in an accident and I'm not going to buy that car. 2 things you can do straight away. Thirdly, buy it with a warranty. If it's got a warranty, you're laughing, okay? But just forget about the mechanical stuff for a second. I'm talking about bodywork. As I said before, I had taken one of my cars to a place and they missed it. You've got to look over the body yourself. I think it's something you've got to do, or take someone with you. You've got to take your time. You've got to get it in the right light, and you've really got to feel the car and feel all the creases, and you've got to look. You've got to make sure everything is lined up. When you're spending $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on a car, everything should be perfect. These cars are amazingly built machines, but all repairs aren't amazingly done. I picked the repairs today quite easily. Have you check, walk around the car, take it for a pre-purchase inspection if you want. But remember, there's no point in getting it inspected by the dealer you're buying it from. I mean, they're not going to, it's ridiculous. You want to have someone that's totally autonomous to the car, and you really want to go over the bodywork. Something else I do now too is I get the car jacked up and I take the wheels off and I have a good look in the wheel arches. And I just have a look at the wheels, I look at the brakes, and that way you can actually look underneath the car and you can really see if there's any damage. When people do repairs, unless it's a very, very, very good, people become relaxed at what they do, so you can pick a repair. So my top 5 things, here's the reason why I'm putting this out. If I buy a car and pay retail price, and then in 3 years time I sell that car, and let's say it owes me $350,000, and then someone else checks it and says, listen, it's been resprayed here, this isn't original, there's $100,000 worth of parts even before me, I'm going to lose massive amounts of money. So it's really important to do your due diligence, is to park your emotion away, and have the car thoroughly inspected. Also, when you drive the car, it should idle really well. It should be very, very smooth. The gear changes should be smooth. And, I think it's okay to push the car through all the gears if you're going to buy it. Make sure the gearbox feels everything smooth and everything should be tight. Look, the tests could go on forever, but that's just some basic stuff that I do to make sure I'm not buying a car that's been in a smash or being repaired. And again, I'm not hanging it on people or panel beaters that repair cars, because I know some of them, I know they do a great job, but I want to know if a car's being repaired, because I'm not going to pay full demo price if a car's been smashed. I'm just not going to do that.